Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 113th episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. I know I'm about a month late to the party, but I had to throw my 2 cents in on a film that seems to be slightly dividing people. Some are calling it a masterpiece, others are calling it boring. A movie that was highly anticipated that I was very, very excited to see. Today, we are going to be discussing 2024's Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. Now, like I did with The Substance a couple months ago, I'm just going to go off the head with this review because I actually have a little bit to say, and I kind of just need to let it off my chest, but I won't keep you too long. This will have some light spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, watch it first because I'm liable to say anything. Guys, do me a big old favor and like the video, subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot. Trying to hit 700 subscribers by the spring. Would appreciate it. Follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader. It's in the description box below as well. So let's get into Nosferatu. Now, this movie was highly anticipated by everyone. Very much by me. I'm a huge vampire fan. I absolutely love vampire movies. I actually did a best vampires movies list of all time, and I can actually link that below as well if you want to see it. That's how much I love vampire movies. Now, so you could imagine, I was very excited. Now, I was mostly excited because it's Robert Eggers, okay? Robert Eggers did The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman, which I enjoy all three of those movies, and I think The Witch is a straight masterpiece. So when I heard he was doing this, I was like, oh, this is gonna be absolutely beautiful. And it was, look-wise. Oh man, it was beautiful, man. This movie has a look to it that I can't deny. And after watching it a second time, I have to appreciate the artistry on display here with the way this film looks. But we'll get more into that in a second. But so you could only imagine how excited I was when I heard about this movie. Now, I have to admit some things. I am not a fan of the original 1922 silent Nosferatu film. I think it's a snooze fest. I do. I'm going to be 100% honest. Um, I get its influence. It's old. It's one of the first movies ever. So I can't sit here and criticize it too much, but I'm not one of those guys who loves that movie. I'm just going to be honest. Now, Nosferatu as a property, it has its things going on because it is an adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, which is an extremely popular and familiar story. And this film absolutely feels like that. I'm a big fan of the Ford Coppola Dracula movie from the early 90s with Gary Oldman and Anthony Hopkins, Winona Ryder. One of my favorite vampire movies. Absolutely great film. Now, this film, I mean, I know you've heard a few people say it, but it does feel like that film at times. Um, and that's okay because, it is a property that is based off that book. So, I can't get too upset with that. But I mean, at times, and not the whole time, but at times it just felt far too much like Coppola's Dracula. And, like everybody has their place. Like, obviously, the Lily Rose character would be Mina. Willem Dafoe would be the Van Helsing character. Nicholas Hoult would be Keanu Reeves' character. And obviously, Orlok would be Gary Oldman's character. But this movie, I'm gonna be 100% honest. It didn't hit the way I expected it to. It didn't hit the way I wanted it to, and it didn't hit the way that I needed it to because vampire movies have kind of been stale for a while. We haven't really gotten a great vampire movie in a while. Even though I heard that Abigail movie is pretty good, which I will check out eventually. But I mean, I think the last great vampire movie to come out was probably either Thirst or Only Lovers Left Alive. But I mean, we just don't get them like we do anymore. And this movie, I was expecting to turn that around, even though I'm not a big fan of Nosferatu as a property. I was hoping that Eggers would make me a fan. Now, there's a lot to like about this movie. Let me tell you that. Like I was mentioning earlier, the look of it, the cinematography is good. I was kind of on the fence with it on the first watch, but after a second watch, I do believe the cinematography is pretty good. It's got this gray, just dreary look to it that I think would be very pleasing to goth fans. Um, I will say it's definitely got a style to it. That can't be denied. I mean, the costuming is absolutely beautiful. Like the outfits, they're spot on. They got everybody's look down very, very well. Um, it's Robert Eggers. He knows how to make a movie look good. I mean, look how good The Northman looked. I know a lot of people didn't like that movie, but look how good it looked. Look how good God, The Lighthouse's cinematography is some of the best black and white cinematography we've ever seen. So Robert Eggers, he knows how to make a movie look the way it should look. And this movie looks the way it should look. I can't even deny that. If you are very much into Robert Eggers' style, this is not going to disappoint you there. The production design is fantastic. You know, the sets, all the houses they're in, the rooms look great. It's really cool. It's awesome because it takes place, in the like the mid 1800s or something like that. I think it's 1838 or something like that. So they got the look down, even though we're in Germany and everyone's speaking English with British accents. But okay, whatever. That's not even that big of a nitpick. Who cares? My issues with this film, though, it comes down to some things, though. All right, because the way this film looks and the vibe of it, it keeps you engaged through the whole thing, and it does make you want something from it. Because I wanted something from this movie the whole time. Now, did I get that something by the end? I'll talk about that in a minute. But this film definitely makes you want something as you watch it. And I was like, okay, where are we going? I want to know where we're going. I'm in the car. Turn up the music. Let's have a fun ride. And I gotta say, man, we hit traffic a lot on this ride. The pacing of this movie was terrible. It's too long, man. This movie is too long. There's a lot of dead space in this movie. There's a lot of boring parts, I have to admit. Because this story, I mean, it's pretty simple. If you've seen Dracula, you get this story. Count Orlok, played by Bill Skarsgård, he is interested in Lily Rose Depp's character. And I think it's Ellen. Yeah, he's interested in her because she calls out to him. And you get a quick scene where she calls out at the beginning, and okay. And then it's like years later, and she's married, and this dude still wants her because now that she's married, I guess he's jealous. And we get in, Bram Stoker's fashion, her husband goes to see the count to make a deal, and he makes a deal, and the count is like, "I'm coming to get your girl," and that's the story, man. I'm just, it's simple. It's a simple story. And of course, there's little things along the way. There's a lot of themes in this movie, which I think some of them are good. A lot of the themes that are explored, a woman's sexual repression, especially back then. Because the whole thing in this movie, she just wants her husband to fuck her. Let's just keep it real. She just wants to get some D. That's the bottom line. And Orlok's like, bro, I'm down for the task if you ain't. And it's it's actually kind of funny, when you talk about it. And I just think this movie takes itself way too serious. Um, because I gotta say, it is comical at times. Some of the things you see in here, comical in a good way, comical in a bad way. Because there's one scene I gotta discuss real quick. So the guy who kind of sets everything up between Orlok and Nicholas Holt's character, who plays Ellen's wife, which I can't remember his name right now, and it's not important, but the guy who sets everything up, essentially the Renfield type of character, he they catch him because he's gone mad and he's in this little dungeon, and he's talking to the dudes who run the place, and he has a pigeon and he bites his freaking head off, and it's so funny because he just the way he does it is funny, and then the dude who runs the spot, he says, "My good fellow, why did you do that?" And the way this dude delivers that line, bro, I just started laughing so hard. I could not help myself. It was the funniest shit I ever seen. I was dying. There's some of the acting in here, it does make you laugh. Like, and it's because I'm gonna be honest, I think this thing was overacted, all right? You know what? Why don't we talk about the action real quick while I got that? All right, so Lily Rose Depp, Johnny Depp's daughter, she's in this movie. We saw her in The Idol recently, which that show was a complete disaster, but she was good in it, I think. And she's been in some other stuff. She's got a little cameo in Tusk, but I won't lie, I haven't seen a ton of her work, but I was kind of excited to see what she brought because I did think she, had enough sauce to pull this role off. And now that I've seen it twice, I gotta say, I think this is the most overrated performance of the year. And when I first saw it, I was like, you know what, she was pretty good, even though I did laugh at her a lot because so much of her theatrics were just overdone, man. It didn't. I personally think she should have took a slightly less is more approach with her acting in this because I think and look, she's trying to break out. She's gonna break out after this. She's gonna get tons of roles after this because a lot of people loved her performance. But people were saying she should have got an Oscar nom and all this. That is absolutely absurd. And there's a reason she didn't get an Oscar nom because she didn't deserve it. She was fine. Okay, she was fine. I thought in the moments, the regular moments where she was just being herself, I thought she did fine job. But all the stuff everyone's raving about, the possession moments and all the convulsing and contorting the body and all that. Listen, do you guys think that any other top level actress in her age bracket couldn't pull this role off? Anya Taylor Joy would have pulled this role off way better. I'm just gonna keep it real. She would have killed this. Um, Saoirse Ronan would have pulled this off. Florence Pugh, any one of them type of chicks could have pulled this role off and probably did a better job. Uh, I think she overdid a lot of this. I mean, guys, it's not that hard to fake orgasms and shake around and breathe in real heavy and roll your eyes. Like that's what she was doing. That's what she was doing. And I'm not saying she didn't do a good job in it, but it was whatever. I thought she overdid some of it. I laughed at a lot of it. But she brought it, man. I will say she brought it. She put her all into this role, and you can see that. And I'm proud of her for that. And I do hope her continued success because of that. I just think we're getting a little too crazy about her performance. It was fine. It works for the movie. It's whatever. But it is not that good. Now, Nicholas Holt, on the other hand, that's a performance. I believe he carried this movie. I think he probably has the most screen time of anyone, to be honest. I mean, the most interesting stuff in this movie to me was when he was dealing with the Count on his own because I felt he had a deeper, better connection with the Count than freaking Ellen and the Count did. Well, at least in my opinion, because obviously she's very resistant to the Count. Everyone is, but this film lacks that sexiness, that desire, that 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 alluring nature that vampire movies should have. It doesn't have any of that, and that kind of bothered me too. I thought this movie was gonna be really hot and sexy. Thought it was gonna be, you know, very mood shifting and very, very vibey in that sense. And it wasn't. It was vibey, just not in the way I expected it to. It's a cold movie, and obviously vampires are dead, but so why would it be warm? But vampires bring a warmth to them. They bring this alluring nature to them. That's why, you know, what they do in their lives are so interesting and intriguing. And this movie has none of that. The Count's life seems terrible. Why would you want to be him? Why would you want to be near him? Nothing seems cool about being this dude. He's just disgusting, gross, whatever, if you just ask me. Uh, and we'll talk about Bill Skarsgård in a second. But Nicholas Hoult, though, man, he really came through in his performance, I think. I think he was the best performance in this movie. And I think, if any actor in this movie was going to get some kind of considerations, it would have to be him, in my opinion. Aaron Taylor Johnson, he was not good in the first half of the film. I was like, dude, I was kind of chuckling at him too. And I'm a big fan of him, but I was kind of chuckling at him too. And I'm like, oh my lord, this acting is. But man, by the end, he had turned me. He really brought it in the final scenes of the movie, and especially the one with his wife when his wife and his kids die and all that. It's oh man, he brought it there. He got me a little bit there. Go ahead, Aaron Taylor, feel you. But the necrophilia, ugh. But whatever, that was funny. And Willem Dafoe, my man's one of my favorites right now, one of my favorites for a while. Killed it in The Lighthouse, so he's already familiar working with Eggers. I thought he was good in this movie. You know, I thought his character was a kind of a blend between his Lighthouse character and his Poor Things character. So I'm not gonna say it's his best acting or his most creative work, but he still is Willem Dafoe. He still brought it. No complaints there. Uh, and the Count Orlok, played by a guy I do like, Bill Skarsgård. I don't love him, but I do think he's one of our most promising guys we got coming up. I think he did well overall, um, but that voice was killing me. It's not the voice itself; it's the pacing of his speech. He talks so slow, and it was driving me crazy. It was almost hard to understand him at times. That was driving me wild, man. But I mean, wow, what a makeup job, right? Those prosthetics, the way he looked, the way they made his eyes look so different. That stupid mustache, though. I mean, the stash actually, I found it funny. I chuckled at that too when I first saw it. But whatever, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. But the makeup on him for the most part was fabulous. I mean, that dude, for him to do, I don't think we even give these actors enough credit just for how long they got to sit in a chair and get that stuff put on. It's insane. But Bill Skarsgård, he did give a good performance overall. I mean, if you didn't know it was him, you would not know it was him. I mean, I don't think there's anything to tell you that this is Bill Skarsgård. They got rid of everything that makes him distinct, that all his characteristics, all his features, they got rid of all that, and he got lost in this. So I gotta give him his credit there. So Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, I'm giving you two the trophies for acting in this movie. Great job. Makeup, I believe they got a best makeup design or best makeup Oscar nom. It's deserved. It's deserved. And if it wins, I won't even be mad, even though I want the substance to win. But I would not be upset. And I believe it got a cinematography nom. Also, can't be too mad about it. I mean, it's got some cool shots, man, and it's got some cool editing too. Dude, when the hand is the Orlok's hand, the shadow is going over the city. That's really cool. I gotta say, that was cool. The way it all looks there, it is nice. Like, this is a very pretty film to look at, I gotta say. The style is absolutely there, especially if you're into old school goth stuff, you know? But guys, it kinda paces slow. I thought it paced very slow. I thought this movie could easily been cut about 20, maybe even 25 minutes. And the horror aspects, the horror. It's not there. This movie is not scary at all, and I'm not saying it had to be scary because I do think I think this is more of a drama than, a horror movie, in my opinion, especially after you watch it. And a lot of vampire movies aren't necessarily scary, like, one of my all-time favorite ones, The Only Lovers Left Alive, isn't scary at all. It's a vibe, it's a movie about a relationship, really. So I'm not saying a vampire movie needs to be scary, but I do think a lot of people were expecting some of that Robert Eggers style kind of spooky horror stuff that he has in some of his movies. And this movie lacked it all. I was not afraid. Even at the parts you were supposed to be afraid of, was not scared. Jump scares didn't do it for me. But that's just me. Everybody's gonna be different on that. Everybody gets scared at different stuff. So that's whatever. But don't go into this thinking it's a horror movie. The direction though, um, I think it was I think it was actually some of his weaker direction because I think he let some of these scenes and some of the stuff go a little off the rails, man. I couldn't take a lot of this serious at times. I really couldn't. There's some scenes where it's just so overdone. I just laughed. I did. I can't lie. And I haven't actually laughed at acting and direction in a film in a while. I really couldn't tell you the last time. And after I laughed, I was like, wow, why did I laugh at that? That shouldn't have been funny, but it was. And it's because I couldn't take it serious. So, although this movie has a lot to offer, it does. It has a lot to like, it does. I cannot say that this movie lived up to the hype. I really can't say that it did. I mean, I'm not gonna go over all the stuff that I didn't like, but I really thought that so much of it was just unnecessary, and we could have just, man, spice this shit up a little bit. Like Orlok's not even like that important to the movie, really. It's like he was so underused. I feel like his presence when he was there, it was cool, but we don't see him a lot. And I think we could have used a little bit more of him to give this movie a little more edge because the most exciting stuff is when he is around. And I'm like, this is a vampire movie. This is Nosferatu. Well, let's see the fucking vampire. Let's play with him. And we didn't play with him enough. We played with Nicholas Holt and Lily Rose Depp too much. And then we had way too much stuff with Aaron Taylor Johnson and the professor, and it's all that crap. We didn't need to see it all. We didn't need to see all this process of them trying to figure it out because that shit was boring as hell. Now, I will say the whole stuff with the rats and the plague, that was cool. That was a cool touch. That was some of the more exciting stuff, seeing the people get sick and how everyone was reacting to that. I think that was something that should have been dived in a little bit more, and we should have had a little bit more Orlok. I think we should have put those two features into the story a little bit more and less of this just, I guess you can call it character building of Ellen and her husband with these dreams and all this crap. Like, we could have had less of that and more of the count and more of dealing with the plague and how the plague is affecting the people. And I think that would have drove home the ending and the story a little bit more, because then we would have been far more invested. Because, I mean, really, after a while, you're just invested in Lily Rose Depp's characters and her sexual activity and how little of it she's getting. And that's fine, but I think there was some stronger themes and stronger stuff we could have played with here. Eh, the movie though, I will say, I have to say this, and it's the one thing I think that saves this movie from being from me giving it a terrible review to me actually giving it an okay review is that ending. I know a lot of people didn't like the ending, but I think it was some of the strongest stuff in the movie. The last like 10 minutes were beautiful. Um, what had to be done and the way it went about, it's upsetting, it's sad, it's kind of silly too. But I think he wrapped the story up decently. And I mean, the way they shot that, the way they made Orlok's body look, and the way the sun's coming out, and I mean, that was just some of the coolest stuff. I will say that last scene, the last few shots were magical. I mean, I was taken with that. That was the most I was invested in the entire film. Uh, and like I said, man, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's all bad. 'Cause there's a couple decent scenes, but they all have Orlok. Like Orlok is standing face to face with Lily's character in that room, and it's just this gray vibe, and he's basically telling her, you got 3 days to make up your mind, or I'm coming up stuff up. And dude, that scene is dope. Like that scene is dope. I'm like, we needed more Orlok, man. We really did, because I do think Bill Skarsgård really brought it in this, with the exception of his slow ass talking. He brought it, man. And uh, I don't know. I would have did this movie differently if I was Robert Eggers. Sure. Uh, I think this is some of his lesser direction. I mean, I need that witch direction back, that lighthouse. But this movie, it's gonna resonate with people, and I understand why a lot of people love this movie. It just wasn't for me. I didn't love it. I thought it was alright, you know. I mean, I thought it was decent enough to watch again and review it, but I can't say I had any more fun with it on the second time. And I will absolutely say I thought even less of Lily Rose's performance on the second time. I'm gonna be honest, on the second watch, I was just picturing all the other actresses I was thinking of that I would have liked to have seen do this role. And Lily, that's no shade to you. You're a good actor. She is a good actor. Don't think I'm saying that she's not, because that is not the case. I do think she's a good actor. But I don't know. She just didn't do it for me in this one. So to wrap all this up, Nosferatu, it's a necessary movie. Okay. I'm glad it was made. And I'm proud of what Robert Eggers was able to give the fans, because he serviced a very large demographic, because there are people who absolutely love this movie. There's people who thought it should have got a Best Picture nom. I'm glad it didn't, because it did not deserve that, even though I would take this in over Amelia Perez any day of the week, or whatever. um, but the Oscar noms it did get, I do think it deserved. And it might win one or two of them. So, and I won't be mad at that. I absolutely appreciate the craft of this, the artistry. There was a lot of dopeness brought to the table here, but for me, it just didn't add up to everything. So, if you haven't seen this, you shouldn't have probably watched it. But if you did anyway, this might be for you, this might not. But if you've been watching me and you've seen the films that I like and you agree with me, then you might not like this. So I'm going to give Nosferatu a 6.4 out of 10. That's not a bad score, it's not a terrible score. It's not a great score, but it could have been way worse. It's not one of the worst movies of the year. It's definitely worth watching, I would say. But I'm not saying you're gonna love it. But guys, thank you so much for checking out my Nosferatu review. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. I know I probably kept you a little bit too long. Guys, do me a huge favor. Like and subscribe. Help me hit my goal, 700 subs by the spring. I really appreciate it. Guys, follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader. I'll link that below. Guys, follow me and my buddy. We got a podcast, The Cutting Room Floor, that'll also be linked below for more movie content. Hey, if you got a topic or film you'd like me to review, let me know. I will definitely get to it when I have the time. Got a few I'm working on for a subscriber, but we do have the Oscars and stuff coming up, so I will be doing covering some Oscar content. So in the spring, it'll open up a little bit and we'll get back to more of that stuff. But guys, appreciate you. I will be back next week, and don't forget the popcorn.